In video games, what is canon is not always what is interesting. And also, canon is fungible, let's say. Sometimes it's better putting the pieces together in a way that wasn't necessarily intended. Sometimes all that deduction gets incorporated into the next sequel, and sometimes it doesn't. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 controversial video game theories. Starting off with number 10, it is the Tetraforce from the Legend of Zelda series. One of those game theories that just refuses to die. It was discussed as early as 1998, and ever since, it's been brought up again and again. It's almost 30 years now, right? If my math is off, it doesn't matter. It's been a long time. If you're not already deep in the Legend of Zelda, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. But if you are 100%, you've already made up your mind about this whole thing a long time ago. What makes it controversial isn't necessarily that it's terrible. It's just that it's constantly relitigated. As a theory, it's actually a pretty fun, possible direction the series could go in, or a plot point that could be introduced in future games. But when people start implying it's a sort of secret plot point that's actually been there the whole time, the rest of us rubes just can't see it though, that's when it gets actively annoying. The actual core of the theory is pretty simple. One of the core components of Zelda is the Triforce, this relic left behind by 3 golden goddesses with 3 triangles that represent courage, wisdom, and power. Usually Link gets the Triforce of courage, Zelda gets wisdom, and Ganondorf gets power. How exactly the Triforce works tends to change from game to game, but the overall representation of the 3 triangles that make up the one big triangle, that's not tough, not a changing quantity. This theory supposes there's actually a 4th secret Triforce piece, which is significant because normally there's 3. That's pretty much it. That's the reason anybody cares, too. Some people want to believe the number 3 is actually the number 4. That's the basis of one of the most divisive and long-running video game theories of all time. It started because there's another triangle on the shield of the Ocarina of Time game. You know, in the re-release of the game, Nintendo edited the shield to remove the extra triangle, and ultimately Ocarina of Time never had a 4th Triforce piece, but that's where the theories begin. Now, the generally agreed upon idea is the empty space between 3 Triforce pieces represents the secret 4th piece, which is maybe meant to represent darkness, void, or chaos, or something. A lot of the emphasis is placed on the importance of the number 4 in the Zelda games. I guess people find it strange there are a lot of 4s in these games, but only 3 parts in the Triforce. I got it, I guess. There is a lot more to the theory. There's hours and hours of YouTube videos covering the subject, and years worth of fans' debates on various sites and forums, and you really have to learn more about how the thing that's famously 3 might actually be 4. If you want to learn about it, have to learn about it. The internet's got your back. A lot of people absolutely hate this stuff. A lot of people are obsessed with it, but the most important thing to keep in mind is that it doesn't matter, like at all. At number 9 is indoctrination theory from Mass Effect 3. It's been about 15 years since the release of Mass Effect 3. You'd think the adage, time heals all wounds, might apply, but it has not. If anything, time has only heated up the debates surrounding the game's infamously divisive ending. Fans were so upset the way the trilogy ended that BioWare actually went back, redid with the extended cut DLC, but that wasn't enough to quench the flames of anger. To this day, people are still getting into fights over the ending of this game. Nobody is fully happy with it. Some, I guess, accept it, but indoctrination theory, okay? If you're like me, somebody who played the hell out of Mass Effect, you know what indoctrination theory is. This theory suggests the possibility the ending we saw in Mass Effect 3 was not the actual end of the game. Instead, it was the beginning. Proponents of this theory say the ending that we saw at the end of the game was an illusion created when Shepard was blasted by the big laser at the end of the game, and that the final moments of the game, including the controversial bits with the Star Child and the 3 choices, that is an illusion. Your mind has been taken over by the Reapers using their powers of indoctrination, and to the theory's credit, is firmly established in Mass Effect lore. People have been exposed to Reaper technology for long enough periods of time, are established as having their minds taken over. It happens again and again in these games, and nobody's really had more direct contact with the Reapers than Shepard, so it's not like there's nothing to this theory. The part that makes it come off controversial is that it kind of feels like a coping mechanism to try to improve the fact that the ending isn't great. It's just it's a fan fiction kicking off point. The general idea is that you make the right decision at the end, Shepard breaks out of the Reaper's mind control, and that has him wake up before the ending of Mass Effect 3. It's a ending theory with no ending. It's mostly just a kicking off point for your Mass Effect 3 fan fiction. Might sound a little bit of a whirlwind, but that's more or less what it is. Imagine if that was really how it was supposed to end, though, having Shepard struggle with indoctrination. That's fine. That's not the element that's really the problem. It's just kind of having him go through a fake ending because of it. It's lame, like almost as lame as the ending we got, because it would be the ending we got, except for with a dumber reason. It certainly doesn't fix the ending. It just explains a couple of inconsistencies that really don't matter. Like, I don't really care that Anderson got into the Citadel before I did. Small potatoes compared to the actual meat and potatoes problems of the ending. So coming up with something to explain stuff like that instead of addressing the elephant in the room, just the fact that it's not really a satisfying ending, it's kind of missing the forest for the trees. It's not a terrible theory, and there's interesting aspects to it, but it's cope. And number 8, the Knight is actually the Pale King reincarnated in Hollow Knight. When it comes to Hollow Knight, lore is serious business. Interpret it incorrectly at your own peril. The game theory guy learned the hard way back in 2020 when he released a video about this specific Hollow Knight theory, where he supposed the character we play as is actually a reincarnated Pale King who is the Lord of the Kingdom of Hallownest, where the game is set. If you're not already immersed in the series story, and I don't mean like beating the game, I mean like really deep into the lore of the game, sounds reasonable, honestly. But the very concept started a firestorm in the Hollow Knight community. People accused the video of being poorly researched with weak conclusions that intentionally ignore parts of the game that directly contradict the theory. I'm not making any kind of judgment here. Ultimately, what we're talking about here is a game theory video, and at the end of the day, these are light entertainment, not really a big need to take them seriously. But if fandoms are capable of anything, it's to taking consequential things very seriously. So, in what can only be described as the modern day equivalent of Bishop Nicholas slapping Bishop Arius at the Council of Nicaea, Hollow Knight's lore master Mossbag put a 50-minute video out debunking the theory. And yes, Hollow Knight fans believe that the theory is wrong. It's a cute idea that you're actually playing as the mysterious king of this kingdom, but the evidence doesn't really support it. So let that be a lesson to everyone out there. Craft theories about Hollow Knight at your own risk, especially if you got a YouTube channel with a lot of subscribers. At number 7, Chico is quiet in Metal Gear Solid 5. For some reason, Metal Gear Solid 5 broke a lot of people's brains. There are a lot of absurd theories surrounding this game, but by far the most outlandish and bizarre, for whatever reason, that actually managed to gather traction is the Chico is quiet theory, which is as stupid as it sounds. We all remember the Kojima tweet where you'll discover the secret reason for Quiet's exposure, and you will feel ashamed for your words and deeds. Leading up to release, this led people to assume there was some kind of super dark or surprising secret for why Quiet was half naked all the time, which led to this insane theory that the kid from Peace Walker that you rescued in Ground Zeroes is actually the same character as Quiet. It makes no sense, and all the evidence, for I guess lack of a better word, it's all patently absurd. But the theory has managed to get a lot of circulation, probably stemming from the fact that it originated on 4chan and had a handy little image to go along with it that could be spammed all over the place for people to get mad at, and people did get mad at it. It probably started off as a troll. It feels that way to me, but there are people that believe it legitimately. You'd think if the game, came out and told you why Quiet was like that, as well as several other things about Quiet, I think that would be enough to debunk the theory, but it continues to float around. And number 6, that Zero killed the classic Mega Man cast. One of the great mysteries of the Mega Man series is exactly what happened between the time of the original series and the Mega Man X series. The X series is the distant future, stars a new Mega Man, Dr. Light, clearly gone, Dr. Wily, clearly gone, the Robot Masters, clearly gone, Roll, nowhere to be found, and the rest of the supporting cast is also gone. Considering we're talking mostly about robots who, in theory, would not die, it doesn't bode well. Capcom refused to give a straight answer, ever, so fans have kind of been left to come up with their own ideas. Take any generally cartoony and upbeat series, and fans will eventually insert something pointlessly dark into it, and it's not like Mega Man X is cartoony and upbeat. It's actually pretty pointfully dark. But hey, that's the start point, baby. One of the most popular theories is that Zero killed the entire classic Mega Man cast. It's a theory that, it's not completely out of nowhere. Dr. Wily did create Zero. In a cutscene in Mega Man X4, we see Zero going maverick and he slaughters a bunch of unnamed robots. robots. Some people drew the conclusion this was showing Zero killing the previous cast, but that's pretty obviously not the case. Still, with no confirmation as to what happened to Classic Mega Man and pals, all we can really do is theorize as to what happened. The controversy is fairly obvious. If this theory were correct, it's very dark, even for Mega Man X. I mean, Mega Man X is more or less an apocalyptic future in which humanity itself is in danger, and the ensuing series, the ZX and the Mega Man Zero, all that stuff, it's pretty dark if you think about all the implications, but hey, this would be, I think, probably the single darkest possible thing. Maybe someday we'll finally see Mega Man's last adventure that bridges the gap between the old games and the X series, but until then, it's just speculation. And number 5, Solaire of Astora is the Karthus worm on Dark Souls 3. For whatever reason, Knight Solaire from Dark Souls gets a lot of fan theories around him, even though he's just a side character among many side characters with no real special purpose. One semi-popular theory was that he was the secret identity of the secret son of Gwyn, basically the game's equivalent of Zeus, the king of gods, in case you don't know who Zeus is. I think you know who Zeus is. Most of the time, the lore in these games can be interpreted how you'd like, just like the word interpreted, apparently. Interpretated. Well, it's vague and ill-defined. That leaves a lot of room here for fan speculation. We never see Gwyn's mysterious third child in Dark Souls 1, so maybe it is. Who knows? Of course, Dark Souls 3 rolls around, and it completely dismantles that theory. You literally fight Gwyn's son in the game. He's the nameless king, and his description pretty much 100% confirms who he's supposed to be, other than all the other obvious signifiers, like how he uses many of his dad's moves and looks just like him. So with that theory busted, fans had to rely on an even more outlandish theory that for some reason Solaire becomes this giant worm thing you encounter down in the smoldering lake. Sounds very random, but again, the idea doesn't come completely out of nowhere. The giant worm uses lightning attacks, which is weird for a worm. Solaire dies down in Lost Izalith in the first game, which is meant to be the same place as a smoldering lake in Dark Souls 3. He's got a bug on his face that could have easily evolved over 1,000 years to be a giant worm, right? There's no evidence in the lore that bugs become giant worms. Don't worry about that. Like, you get any wild theories like this about popular characters, and there's going to be pushback, and while there are still a rare few who try to defend this theory today, mostly all I can find is long, detailed rebuttals of the theory. It's pretty far-fetched and ridiculous, even as far as Souls games theories go, but for whatever reason, it still seems to pop up every now and again. I guess people really like Solaire and want to see him turn into a giant lightning-shooting worm for whatever reason. I guess there are worse fates in the Souls series, so yeah. At number 4, the Ness is Sans theory in Undertale. This game manages to have some actually pretty fun fan theories, especially anything regarding Gaster. This isn't that. It's nonsense. It's so infamous it's a meme. People make fun of it now almost 10 years later, after the original game theory video was posted. Yes, another game theory video. I kind of feel bad singling them out, but a lot of the most controversial video game lore ideas come from them. I don't want to generate drama, and I don't think it's a bad channel or anything. It's not a call out. I'm just talking about people poorly responding to something, which is what happened. The basic thesis here is that Ness, the main character from the Nintendo-developed and published game Earthbound, is Sans, the character created by Toby Fox, who, other than providing a few music tracks for the Pokemon series, has nothing to do with Nintendo. That's the theory. It's not as arbitrary as it sounds. Before making Undertale, Toby Fox made a Halloween hack for Earthbound, a fan game, where he experimented with some of the ideas that would appear later in Undertale. So the connection between the two characters doesn't come completely out of nowhere. Just, there's no real basis for it. It gets more bizarre when you're trying to factor that Sans' brother Papyrus exists. It really goes off the rails by suggesting that Papyrus is a tamed Starman from Earthbound that Ness treats like a brother for some reason. So you're aware, this is Papyrus and this is a Starman. One is a skeleton, one is a robot. Kinda, doesn't seem right. And number 3, the lines J.K. Simmons refused to say in Portal 2. I have no idea where this started, but one of the most commonly repeated pieces of trivia about Portal 2 is in regards to some unused lines people managed to dig up in the files. Apparently, people saw these out of context bits of dialogue and assumed it must mean the game was originally going to have a scene with some either implied or straight up depicted sexual assault. In Portal 2, the game with goofy robots that famously lied about cake. So it apparently was performed by a character called Cave Johnson. I'm not so sure it's entirely believable a game with a character called Cave Johnson was going to go to this extent. I'm not going to say it's entirely impossible. I mean, there's some pretty dark stuff in Portal, but I mean, there's reasons why you shouldn't believe this one in particular. According to fans, though, the voice actress that played Gladys, Ellen McLean, this scene apparently made her cry in the recording booth. And Cave Johnson voice actor J.K. Simmons, get me pictures of Spider-Man, J.K. Simmons. He apparently refused to read the lines. Just a reminder, J.K. Simmons played a psychotic Nazi who said much worse things than anything that would have been said in even what would have been a pretty dark sounding situation. The writers behind Portal 2 have directly responded to the theory, saying it's categorically false. They even directly responded to the fact Simmons refused to say the line. According to Eric Wolpaw, the guy would say anything as long as they paid him, which sounds a little more correct. Because look at some of the nonsense Cave Johnson says in this game. Even after being directly debunked, though, it's one of those theories that just pops up again and again. The exact same disinformation just gets shared again. Sometimes a little thing like the truth just gets in the way of a good story.
Oh no! No, 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 no! Oh no, 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 no!
Okay, look, we both said a lot of things that you're going to regret. But I think we can put our differences behind us. For science, you monster.
And number 2 is the Silent Hill circumcision theory. Hoo-hoo, the words internet and circumcision. I don't know if any of you have had any encounters that involve both of these things, but it can get contentious. Anyway, in 2015, out of nowhere, a moderator on the Silent Hill wiki decided that now was the time to reveal to their loyal readers a grand theory that the serial killer bad guy from Silent Hill 4, his motivation was that he was circumcised. I mean, it's more of a gloriously incoherent wall of text than that, but boil it down, that's the rub. No pun intended. This does not come, no pun intended, from anything in the game. Walter Sullivan is the guy who thinks your apartment is his mom. Nothing in the game comes close to implying. Like, I guess if it was just some random crank talking nonsense on his personal blog, really wouldn't matter. But he was the admin on the Silent Hill wiki and decided completely unprompted that this should be displayed proudly alongside all of the other information on the Silent Hill wiki. And actually, it wasn't just about Walter Sullivan. They inserted bizarre theories all over the wiki, and people rightfully started asking why there are suddenly huge walls of text about circumcision all over the Silent Hill wiki. And that made him just angrier and started accusing people of being brainwashed. The guy really needed to log off. Eventually, he did exactly that when he was removed as admin and banned from the site. The lesson here, a theory doesn't need to be around for a long time or make a lot of sense or even come from a popular content creator to be controversial. You just need somebody with a bad attitude, way too much time, and access to the wiki. And finally, at number 1, Squall is dead from Final Fantasy VIII, the original controversial video game fan theory. It's been discussed and dissected for many, many years. There's still a website up since at least 2010. The concept, pretty simple actually. It's intriguing if you're the type of person who goes for this kind of theory crafting. At the end of Disc 1, Squall gets impaled by an ice shard. Normally, he wakes up at the start of Disc 2, unaware about how he was healed, but otherwise fine. The theory supposes that instead of surviving, Squall actually died, and the rest of the game is kind of an occurrence at Owl Creek style dying dream or some kind of purgatory thing or something like that. After the relatively straightforward events of the first disc, Final Fantasy VIII gets a lot more convoluted and incoherent with its story, which is, not unprecedented. Final Fantasy VII kind of follows that same thing, except for the incoherence is less dreamlike, I guess. And for fans of this theory, everything that doesn't make sense about Final Fantasy VIII gets explained away at least. It was all a dream, you see. This fan theory was so well known that in 2017, Kotaku actually asked the game's director, Yoshinori Kitase, point blank if Squall died at the end of Disc 1. I think it should probably come as no surprise to you that no, the last 3 discs of the game are not a single character's dying dream. Obviously, you're still free to interpret the game however you want, but it was very much not the intention. I think part of this stems from the fact that when Aerith was impaled in Final Fantasy VII, she died, despite the fact that you really shouldn't kill somebody in one of these games. Phoenix Downs exist, healing, removing status ailments, all that stuff, it's done with magic. So it's actually more absurd that Aerith dies than Squall lives. These days, most people just roll their eyes at this theory. For all the arguments and controversy, it really just boils down to being an old horror movie cliche. It was all a dream. Sure, Jacob's Ladder got away with it back in 1990. In fact, some pretty good pieces of art have done that before, but it's not something that you can do without a lot of care. And I'm just going to say the way Final Fantasy VIII was written seems pretty haphazard a lot of the time. Not that there wasn't care that went into it, but not care about continuity. Squall is Dead is kind of like indoctrination theory, and then it kind of, I think it's just cope. The story's pretty dumb and barely stays together, and that's not just because the writing is a mess, of course. Final Fantasy VIII is a classic game. The writing cannot be a mess in a classic game. It must have just been a dream. It is a theory people went nuts for back in the day, but it's kind of the prototypical dumb fan theory, and yet people do still debate it. There are still videos getting made about this. People can't stop talking about it. We're talking about it right now. You can leave a comment about it. In fact, we encourage you to. What do you think about all of these, in fact? Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, it's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. Join the 1% Club with the button below. It gets you access to the Falcon Show, which comes out every Saturday. Thanks a whole lot. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.